Back in the time, I partied a lot and I drank a lot, and I did have a few moments when I didn't remember exactly what happened the night before. So I wanted to stay on pill in case I did something really stupid that would be able to impact the rest of my life. My mom had cancer, breast cancer, so I was told by doctors that I actually shouldn't be on a pill because it can be, an extra danger level to my health because of, like my mom had a breast cancer. They would say that as a daughter, you actually shouldn't be doing this. And it was a big concern for me, but to be honest, the convenience of being on a pill just overruled that fear. Now, what happened next is I left the West, I left the corporate world, and I moved to Asia, to Southeast Asia, which has a very different energy. It's very sensual, very connected to nature, and I got into spirituality and I got into Tantra. And so a whole big theme of these practices is to connect to yourself, connect to your...
Wow, that is a lot. This is from a video called My Experience with the Pill, and first of all, her point about Southeast Asia being more spiritual than the West. Now, I'm someone that's spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia. I'm sure much more time than her. And I hear a lot of white people saying that Asia or Southeast Asia, or just Asia in general, is much more spiritual than the West. I hear a lot of, this is kind of a trope in American movies. I just saw Ramsey Paul do a video about Gremlins and about how the Chinese people, they're more spiritual and they appreciate things, where the Westerners like to come in and destroy things. And there's a lot of Asians will tell us it's a more spiritual place. A lot of these new agey white people will tell that. But as a guy that spent so much time in Southeast Asia, that has so much experience, what do I think? What's the truth? Well, if you've been watching this channel for some time, you would know I'm an environmentalist. Now, why am I an environmentalist? Because I took a trip to Southeast Asia and I saw what it's like, and I thought, oh my God, I have to tell others that we all need to be responsible, because I do not want the United States to become like Southeast Asia. And it kind of reminds me of this episode of The Family Guy, where Peter and his friends, they're out looking for God. He wants to find God where he's located, and someone tells him, well, you should go to India because that's the most spiritual place on earth. So they get on a plane, they fly to India, they step off the plane, they look around, they look at how polluted and how filthy it is, and he just says, he's not here, and they get back on the plane and go back. And that's kind of what this woman in this video called My Experience with the Pill, she's telling us that Asia is this much more spiritual place, and she's giving us some other information that I'll address. But saying it's more spiritual, first of all, she told us she's from Poland, which, if you know Poland, it's a very, very Catholic country. Now, she doesn't seem to consider that spirituality, or she doesn't like that spirituality, probably because, for a couple different reasons. Number one, it's probably not exotic to her, and even if she went through some of the traditions, she never really looked into it and studied it to understand why they do the things they do. But number one, why does she reject that form of spirituality? Well, it's probably for the number one reason: people reject Christianity, and everyone would be Christians probably if it wasn't except for this one thing. Why do people reject Christianity? Well, it's usually for something that deals with a sexual nature. And as you heard in the clip, she was into getting drunk to the point of blackout drunk, and hooking up with guys, and that's why she was on the birth control, because she wouldn't even remember what she did. She could go out, hook up with guys, not even have any recollection of it, and have gotten pregnant. So she was on the pill because of that. Not to mention, it went against her doctor's advice getting on the pill, because it could increase her chances for cancer, which her mom had. But she said, it was just so convenient. That's why I had to do it. So is Asia more spiritual? Absolutely not. It's just a lot of these people, they like to reject it for that reason. And like I said, all this stuff about it's being in the nature, like she's talking about, she's coming from Bali, Indonesia, which that's one specific tourist destination. And I remember I used to have a friend in Los Angeles from Indonesia. He was from Jakarta. And I said, hey, I wouldn't mind visiting Indonesia someday. And he just said to me, you wouldn't like it. I said, what makes you think that? And he said, it is so filthy and polluted there, you wouldn't believe it. And if you do know what Indonesia looks like, and this is not to slight the Indonesian people or their government or anything like that, I'm not trying to insult anyone, but Southeast Asia is the most polluted place on the planet along with China. And yet we have these people trying to tell us how spiritual these people are, how in tune they are with the nature. My friends, the answer is not there. What's happening is, with this girl, like I said, she's rejecting Catholicism, and she wants to get on the pill. She wants to follow her lust, her passions, instead of following the order that, if you really study this stuff and the order that they set up for your life, in the long run, you're probably going to end up happier, because this stuff, this lifestyle that people like to live, especially now, because what we're seeing is people my age and the younger generation of Zoomers, they're really having problems growing up. They want to live a very childish life, just like we're seeing with my generation, where we're seeing adult men in middle age living very childish lives. But this stuff is fun for so long. But if you want to take the long-term route to happiness, I think following that lifestyle of order is much more likely to bring you there, especially if you're a female, living this wild life of following your lusts and your passions and doing whatever, and then ending up alone in this world. So think about it. That's some food for thought. But now you know, is Asia more spiritual than Europe and the United States? Absolutely not. If you go looking for it, you will find it. Until next time, my friends.